March 7th, 2026. Yesterday on March 6th, the United States Navy published photographs on its official channels showing the USS Gerald R, the world's most advanced aircraft carrier, transiting the Suez Canal alongside the guided missile destroyer USS Bainbridge. The photographs were taken on March 5th. They were released publicly by the Pentagon. CENTCOM posted on the same day. The Gerald R carrier strike group continues. Around-the-clock operations in support of Operation Epic Fury from the Mediterranean Sea. With another carrier strike group in the Middle East, U.S. forces are squeezing Iran from the sea. USNI News confirmed on March 6th that the Ford is now in the Red Sea, having completed the Suez transit. The USS Abraham Lincoln, confirmed by USNI News Fleet and Marine Tracker as of March 2nd, is in the Arabian Sea. So the United States now has its two most powerful aircraft carriers, the newest Ford class and a fully combat operational Nimitz class, positioned on both sides of the Arabian Peninsula simultaneously, one in the Red Sea, one in the Arabian Sea, and neither of them is in the Strait of Hormuz. That is not an accident. That is a decision. And the reason for that decision is the single most operationally significant fact about the Iran war that no briefing, no press conference, and no official statement has explained directly. The Strait of Hormuz is now effectively closed, not partially disrupted, not experiencing elevated risk, effectively closed. On March 2nd, a senior official in the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps officially confirmed to media that the strait was closed, subsequently threatening any ship that attempted transit. The Windward Maritime Intelligence Daily, which tracks real-time vessel movement data, confirmed on March 5th that only 5 vessel crossings were recorded through the strait on March 4th, 4 inbound and 1 outbound, compared to a 7-day average before the war of 27 crossings. On a normal pre-war day, approximately 20 million barrels of oil transited that 21-mile-wide waterway. As of March 4th, that flow had collapsed to near zero. And the Ford, the carrier that CENTCOM says is squeezing Iran from the sea, is in the Red Sea, not the Strait. The carrier Redline is not rhetorical. It is a geographic fact on the water right now. Here's the data that tells you exactly what the Strait of Hormuz looks like as of this morning, and why the Pentagon's decision to position both carriers outside it rather than inside it reflects the most precise and consequential threat assessment of the entire war. The Council on Foreign Relations, in its analysis published March 6th by James M. Lindsay, confirmed that ship trafficking data showed a 70% drop in vessels traversing the strait after the joint U.S.-Israeli attack on Saturday, February 28th. The Windward Maritime Intelligence Daily for March 5th confirmed the continued collapse, with only 5 vessel crossings on March 4th against a 7-day pre-war average of 27. Lloyd's List confirmed that approximately 170 container ships with a combined capacity of around 450,000 TEU, roughly 1.4% of the global container fleet, are currently inside the strait and unable to exit safely. Protection and indemnity insurance, the primary hull and cargo coverage that makes commercial shipping commercially viable, was withdrawn for Strait of Hormuz transits effective March 5th, according to Windward's confirmed maritime intelligence reporting. Without insurance coverage, no commercial operator can send a ship through the strait regardless of the military situation, because the financial liability of losing a fully laden VLCC tanker with no insurance coverage is existential for any shipping company on Earth. 3 commercial vessels were struck near the strait in the opening days of the war, according to Jane's Intelligence, published March 2nd. The U.S.-flagged Stina Imperative was struck twice at the port of Bahrain, causing a fire, killing 1 port worker and injuring 2, though the ship's crew were unharmed, according to Wikipedia's confirmed article on the 2026 Strait of Hormuz crisis. The IRGC's fast attack craft, which Army Recognition Group confirmed operate at 50 to 70 knots in confined Gulf waters, have maintained a threat presence in the strait's narrowest sections. Iran's 3 Kilo-class diesel-electric submarines, confirmed by Army Recognition Group in its assessment of naval threats published before the war, provide ambush capability in exactly the confined, shallow littoral environment that the Strait of Hormuz represents. That is the environment that 2 American supercarriers are currently positioned around, but not inside. To understand the carrier Redline, you need to understand what the Strait of Hormuz looks like as a piece of geography for a naval commander trying to move a $13 billion ship through it. The strait is 21 nautical miles wide at its narrowest point, confirmed by the Council on Foreign Relations analysis published March 6th. It runs between Oman to the south and Iran to the north. Iran's coastline runs along the strait's entire northern side, meaning that Iran's coastal defense systems, its coastal radar networks, its fast attack boat bases, and its mine-laying assets are positioned along the full length of the waterway that a carrier would have to transit. The confirmed engagement range of Iran's Khalij Fars anti-ship ballistic missile is approximately 300 kilometers, as the Army Recognition Group confirmed in its March 3rd analysis of Iran's layered coastal missile defense. The Strait of Hormuz, at its widest, is approximately 95 kilometers across. A carrier transiting the strait is not near Iran's coastal missile envelope. It is inside it, at every point of the transit, with no room to maneuver outside the engagement range of every coastal anti-ship system Iran has. A carrier in the open Arabian Sea can operate at a standoff distance, positioning itself where the probability of intercepting every incoming threat remains high, and the magazine depth of its escorts is not stressed by simultaneous proximity to dozens of Iranian launch sites. A carrier inside the Strait of Hormuz has no standoff distance. It is 21 miles from Iran's coast at its closest point, inside every threat envelope simultaneously, with no room to maneuver, no depth to exploit, and confined to a navigation channel that Iran's mine-laying submarines and fast attack boats have been threatening since March 2nd. The carrier redline is the line at which standoff geometry collapses into proximity geometry, and the Strait of Hormuz is on the wrong side of that line. Now here is the economic data that explains why the Strait's effective closure is not just a naval planning problem, but a global economic emergency, and why every government that depends on Middle Eastern energy is watching the Ford's position in the Red Sea with the kind of attention that makes oil markets move. The U.S. Energy Information Administration data, confirmed by the Council on Foreign Relations, March 6th analysis states that approximately 20 million barrels of oil per day transited the Strait of Hormuz in 2024, representing approximately 20% of global petroleum liquids consumption. The same EIA data, confirmed by the same CFR analysis, states that around 1/5 of the global liquefied natural gas trade also transited the Strait in 2024, primarily from Qatar. Amrita Sen, founder and director of market intelligence at Energy Aspects, told CNBC in her confirmed on-camera interview, "The key question is what happens to the Strait of Hormuz." She estimated that approximately 15 million barrels of oil and approximately 80 million tons of LNG traversed the waterway last year. On March 2nd, Brent crude spiked by as much as 13% before easing slightly, according to the CFR analysis. Natural gas prices soared by 50%, driven in large part by Qatar Energy shuttering production after its facilities were targeted by Iranian drone and missile strikes, CFR confirmed. The four major container shipping companies, Maersk, Hapag-Lloyd, CMA, CGM, and MSC, all issued confirmed formal suspensions of Strait of Hormuz transits. Lloyd's list confirmed that Maersk and Hapag-Lloyd are rerouting vessels around the Cape of Good Hope, adding weeks to transit times and significantly increasing shipping costs. The Suez Canal itself, which the Ford transited on March 5th in the opposite direction, saw activity drop to 23 crossings on March 4th, below its pre-war trend, according to Windward. Saudi Arabia and the UAE have bypassed pipeline infrastructure, the Saudi East-West Pipeline and the UAE's Habshan-Fujairah pipeline, but EIA data confirms their combined capacity is only approximately 2.6 million barrels per day, against the Strait's normal 20 million barrel daily flow. The gap between those two numbers, 20 million minus 2.6 million, is the volume of global oil that has no alternative route if the Strait of Hormuz closure persists. Drop a comment right now. Do you think the Ford's confirmed position in the Red Sea, rather than in the Arabian Sea alongside the Lincoln or inside the Strait itself, reflects a deliberate two-carrier geometry strategy, or a straightforward avoidance of the Strait's confirmed threat environment? And if this analysis is connecting the carrier position to the Strait closure in a way the live news cycle has not had time to develop, hit the like button. Because what we are going to get into next is the specific confirmed data on the Ford's current operational status, what the split carrier geometry between the Red Sea and the Arabian Sea is actually designed to accomplish, and why the USS George H.W. Bush completing its training exercise on March 6th represents a potential third carrier deployment that would be the largest American carrier concentration in the Middle East since the 2003 invasion of Iraq. The USS Gerald R. Ford is the world's largest warship, displacing approximately 100,000 tons, and confirmed by Stars and Stripes on March 2nd, as more than 8 months into a deployment that has taken the ship from Norfolk to Europe, to the Caribbean, and back to the Eastern Mediterranean. Vice Chief of Naval Operations, Admiral Jim Kilby, confirmed in on-the-record testimony to the Senate Armed Services Committee's Subcommittee on Readiness and Management Support, reported by USNI News, on March 6th that the Ford's extension will ultimately result in an 11-month deployment, and that there will be an impact on her return and the schedule for her maintenance availability, so she's ready to go again. Admiral Kilby confirmed that Navy public shipyards are adjusting schedules to bring the carrier back and maintain her. Chief of Naval Operations, Admiral Daryl Caudle, confirmed in a named statement reported by Stars and Stripes. Our sailors understand the importance of their service. They are away from home longer than planned because the nation needs them forward and ready. The Ford departed Norfolk on June 24th, 2025. An 11-month deployment means the carrier is expected to remain out until approximately May 2026. The Ford's confirmed capabilities that are relevant to its current reading. Sea positioning include the electromagnetic aircraft launching system, called EMALS, which replaces the steam-powered catapult technology used on the Navy's Nimitz-class carriers, including the Lincoln. Stars and Stripes confirmed on March 2nd that Ford's EMALS and advanced arresting gear system have contributed to an increased sortie generation rate compared to that of a Nimitz-class carrier. The Ford also carries 11 advanced weapons elevators that can carry up to 24,000 pounds of ordnance at 150 feet per minute, according to the Navy statement reported by Stars and Stripes. With Carrier Air Wing 8 embarked, the Ford operates a mix of FA-18E and F Super Hornets from Strike Fighter Squadron 31, 37, and 87, all homeported at Naval Air Station Oshena, Virginia, along with EA-18G Growler. Electronic warfare aircraft from Electronic Attack Squadron 142, confirmed in USNI News and Army Recognition Group reporting from March 1st and 2nd. From its confirmed Red Sea position, the Ford's air wing can reach Iranian targets through the combination of its own strike range and aerial refueling support from land-based tanker aircraft operating from regional bases. Army Recognition Group confirmed in its analysis of the Ford's operational positioning that Ford's Eastern Mediterranean stationing was a deliberate geometry choice, and that from a Red Sea axis, carrier air can contribute to long-range strike packages and maritime interdiction while complicating Iranian planning for air defense coverage, warning time, and counterstrike vectors. The split carrier geometry that the Pentagon has confirmed Ford in the Red Sea and Lincoln in the Arabian Sea is the operational architecture that allows the United States to squeeze Iran from two maritime directions simultaneously while keeping both carriers outside the Strait's threat envelope. CENTCOM's own March 5th post confirmed this framing directly. With another carrier strike group in the Middle East, U.S. forces are squeezing Iran from the sea. The squeeze geometry works because Iranian planners now have to account for carrier-based air threats. Vectors from both the west, through the Red Sea corridor and the Gulf of Aden, and from the east, through the Arabian Sea and the Gulf of Oman. Concentrating both carriers inside the strait itself would eliminate that two-axis threat and compress American carrier power into a single geography where Iran's coastal missiles, mines, fast attack boats, and Kilo-class submarines are all optimized to operate. The Army Recognition Group confirmed in its March 3rd analysis that Iran's IRGC naval strategy fuses fast attack craft, mines, submarines, and coastal missiles specifically for confined littoral water operations of the type the strait represents. The Ford and Lincoln, positioned on opposite sides of the Arabian Peninsula, force Iran to manage two separate threat axes with a naval force that CENTCOM's Admiral Cooper declared combat ineffective, decimated, destroyed, and defeated at the Pentagon podium on March 4th. A decimated Navy cannot manage two simultaneous carrier threat axes, but a decimated Navy operating from hardened coastal positions on its own shore can still threaten any ship that enters the 21-mile choke point, where its mines are laid and its fast attack boats operate at 50 to 70 knots. Here's the development that USNI News confirmed on March 6th that changes the scale of what is coming in the next week. USS George H.W. Bush completed its pre-deployment composite training unit exercise, known as COM2X, on Thursday, March 5th. The Navy's release confirming COM2X completion stated that over the course of 28 days, Carrier Air Wing 7 flew 1,586 sorties, accumulating 693 arrested landings during the day and 682 at night. Bush Commanding Officer Captain Robert Bibot said in the confirmed statement, "We know our fellow service members are operating in harm's way right now. Our job is to ensure that when they need us, whether for air superiority, strike, electronic warfare, or presence, we are ready to deliver immediately and without hesitation." USNI News confirmed that there are reports the Bush will also deploy to the region, which the Maritime Executive reported on March 6th, noting that it would be the first time the United States has deployed 3 nuclear aircraft carriers simultaneously into the region. Maritime Executive confirmed that President Trump has said larger, more significant waves are coming, and that CENTCOM is now reporting over 3,000 targets struck in the first week of the campaign. 3 aircraft carriers in the Middle East simultaneously would represent the largest American carrier concentration in the region since the 2003 invasion of Iraq, and would give the United States approximately 220 carrier-based combat aircraft operating from 3 different geographic positions around Iran's maritime perimeter. Here is what the confirmed data on the Strait's economic closure means for the American carrier enters it, and what that decision depends on. The Jane's Intelligence analysis published March 2nd confirmed that the broader economic consequences of the U.S.-Israel strikes against Iran will depend on the duration and geographic spread of subsequent instability, and that a rapid diplomatic de-escalation in the next 4 weeks would likely reverse recent increases in energy prices and enable the gradual restoration of normal shipping patterns through the Strait of Hormuz. The CNBC analysis, featuring Energy Aspects founder Amrita Sen, confirmed her assessment that Iran would likely not seek to close the strait completely because Iran is as dependent on the strait as Saudi Arabia, Iraq, and Kuwait. Campbell University maritime expert Sal Mercogliano confirmed to USNI News in an earlier interview that the Iranians have never closed the Straits of Hormuz, even during the height of the tanker war of the 1980s, because Iran has to export its oil to keep its economy going. Those assessments were correct as historical analysis. They are being tested against operational reality right now because, as of March 4th, only 5 vessels crossed the strait in a full 24 hours, against a pre-war average of 27, and protection and indemnity insurance has been withdrawn entirely. The Council on Foreign Relations analysis confirmed that Iran has other means to disrupt global oil and gas exports beyond a formal closure, including using small boats that can interrupt shipping and submarines that can lay mines, and that Iran's right to declare closure is contested under the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, which stipulates that countries can only make sovereign decisions up to 14 miles from their coastline, and which Iran signed but never ratified. Watch 3 confirmed, publicly trackable indicators in the coming 72 hours. That will tell you whether the carrier redline is a temporary positioning adjustment or a sustained operational boundary that reshapes the entire Persian Gulf naval architecture for the duration of this conflict. Watch the Windward Maritime Intelligence Daily's vessel crossing count for the Strait of Hormuz. The confirmed count, as of March 4th, is 5 crossings in 24 hours against a pre-war average of 27. If that count begins to recover toward double digits, it signals that Iran's enforcement of its declared closure is weakening, which would change the threat calculus for destroyer and potentially carrier operations inside the strait. If it stays at or near zero for another 48 to 72 hours, the economic pressure on every oil importing nation in Asia, which collectively account for the majority of the strait's normal traffic volume, will become intense enough to force diplomatic activity at the United Nations Security Council regardless of the military situation. Watch whether the USS George H.W. Bush's deployment orders are confirmed publicly by the Navy in the next 72 hours. Maritime Executive confirmed that reports of the Bush deploying were circulating on March 6th. If those orders are confirmed and the Bush is committed to the region, the United States will have 3 carrier strike groups operating simultaneously in the Middle East theater for the first time since 2003, with a combined air wing of approximately 220 combat aircraft and a combined escort force of more than 15 Aegis destroyers. That force concentration changes every Iranian defensive calculation, because the magazine drain strategy that Army recognition identified as Iran's core anti-carrier doctrine depends on the ratio of incoming Iranian missiles to available American interceptors, and a 3-carrier force with 15 Aegis destroyers changes that ratio significantly in America's favor. And watch whether the forward's confirmed Red Sea position changes in either direction, either forward toward the Gulf of Aden and the Arabian Sea to close the gap with the Lincoln, or backward toward the eastern Mediterranean, if the threat assessment in the Red Sea itself shifts. The Houthis confirmed support for Iran on February 28th and have not publicly confirmed whether they will resume attacks on shipping. As USNI News reported, if the Houthis resume attacks, the Red Sea becomes a contested operating environment for the Ford in exactly the same way the Arabian Sea is a contested environment for the Lincoln, and the carrier Redline that currently keeps both ships outside the strait becomes a perimeter that is itself under pressure from 2 directions. The Ford is in the Red Sea. The Lincoln is in the Arabian Sea. The Strait of Hormuz is between them, 21 miles wide at its narrowest point, with 5 vessel crossings recorded on March 4th against a pre-war daily average of 27, with insurance withdrawn, with Maersk, Hapag-Lloyd, CMA-CGM, and MSC all suspended, with 170 container ships trapped inside it, with IRGC fast attack boats at 50 to 70 knots, patrolling its narrowest sections, and with Iran's Kilo-class submarines operating in its depths. The carrier Redline is not a line someone drew on a map in a briefing room. It is the line the water drew, confirmed by the data of 5 crossings in 24 hours, and by the position of 2 supercarriers that are executing their missions from every approach to the strait, except through it.